Before I begin this video presentation, I want to issue a warning. This video should be viewed by mature audiences only. I'm presenting some pretty difficult to watch stuff. Two men sustaining nasty injuries. One old man that you've probably seen on the news anyway, and another one from the UK following a fight, a pretty gruesome, violent fight that happens in the street. But I would recommend that this is only viewed by a mature audience. I could have age restricted the video, but by doing so it eliminates the opportunity for comments, and I'm really quite interested in your comments, your opinions on what I am presenting in this video. Secondly, I want to make a quick apology because I do repeat myself quite a bit in this video presentation, but I feel it's necessary to make sure that I get my point and my argument clearly understood. Okay, so without any further ado, here's my video presentation regarding the old guy who was pushed backwards and quite gruesomely hit his head on the concrete. G'day, yesterday I uploaded this video after my week away in YouTube detention, and a video second from the end of this video was in regards to that 75-year-old man who was pushed backwards and cracked his noggin on the concrete. I debunked the notion that he was some kind of stuntman and that his fall and subsequent injuries were not legitimate. Most of you saw what I was getting at and agreed with me in the fact that no, he is not an actor. Well, he might be an actor. I'll get to that in a moment. But that fall was completely legitimate. He was not a stuntman, and he did, in fact, crack his head very, very hard onto the concrete. There was a handful of people, a small handful of people who disagreed and had some other points to raise. So hopefully I'm going to cover them all. I didn't write them down, I don't have them at hand, but hopefully I'll cover them all in this video where I'll just take it I'll have a closer look at it and show you exactly what I was getting at in regards to that video that we saw of the old man being pushed by police, who then fell backwards and his head whipped very hard into the concrete, and he sustained nasty injuries which could possibly cause death. Hopefully they didn't in this situation, and hopefully he avoided serious injury, but falling and hitting your head that way in the concrete has been known to cause the end of life for some people. So let me be absolutely clear what I am debunking here in this video. I am not debunking the notion, in fact I agree with the notion, that this scene was a staged scene, a show of force photo shoot for the news media. Because when you can look around, you can clearly see there are no protesters here for them to be pushing up against. This is clearly a staged scene for the photo, for a photo shoot for the news media. What I'm debunking is that the fact that the old man was pushed, fell backwards and cracked his head on the concrete. It was not a stunt fall. He is not a stuntman who did some amazing acting skills and fell on the ground and he's not really hurt. He got really hurt because he was really pushed and he really fell backwards quickly and his head whipped into the concrete. So to begin with, to begin this debunking video of the fall, to show you how legitimate it really was, I'm going to start with the sound that his head made when it cracked onto the concrete. Some people have suggested, oh, maybe it was just the helmet in his hand that made that noise. No, it was his head. Here is some footage from the UK, where there is a altercation taking place in the middle of the street, where a largish fella is getting his ass handed to him by this and stomped on there by that other dude. But anyway, what you will see in a moment is he will get off the ground all bloodied and in a very bad shape, and he starts to walk away. Hang on, I'll speed it up a bit here. And what happens then is he's then king hit from behind and he falls backwards and hits his head. extremely gruesome stuff. And you'll notice that he is also, while he's laying there a bit stunned, holding his head off the concrete. Luckily for him, he was able to sit up, and so it didn't knock him out for long. Hopefully he avoided major injury. Now, the purpose of showing you that gruesome scene was simply to point out the sound that his head made. A gross, horrible, sickening sound that his head made as it whipped backwards into the concrete. Very loud. Our skulls are very heavy and thick, and clearly they make a large noise when they make contact, falling with such velocity into the ground. Yeah, that's just horrible. It is absolutely sickening. Now, what I've done here is I've put the two videos together. The one video from either side of the road, and I think I've synced them up pretty well. I've put them side by side to begin with, and then I'll play it again where I've put the picture inside the picture, just so that we can see everything, because we lose a little bit of footage when I put them side by side, because, well, that's just how it works here with this editing equipment. Now, the reason I've done this is to show you clearly that it was not done in two separate takes, as some people have suggested. You can clearly see by how I've synced that up together, it marries up perfectly as one single incident. I'll run it again for you, and I want you to also pay attention to the sound that his noggin makes as it's just the sickening sound that his noggin makes as it plunges into the concrete. Now, what I've done here is I'm running the same two pieces of footage. I've synced them up equally well, I think, but rather than have them side by side, because as I mentioned before, we lose a little bit of the picture ratio, the screen ratios. We don't get to see all of it. I've put picture in picture instead, so that we can see the whole screens from both pieces of footage taken from either side of the street. And once again, it's to simply show you that it was not two takes, it was one incident, and his head clearly hit the ground. It was not a fake fall. Now, was this scene staged for the news media and etc, etc? Well, yeah, I think that's quite obvious, and we can see the guy with the skateboard rush in to take his photographs up close. He was obviously there as a news photographer, I would suggest, and then this incident happened, and he pounced on the chance to get nice close-up photos of that, as a good photojournalist would do. Take your opportunities when they present themselves, even if you were there for a different purpose. Yes, I believe this was a staged scene, simply as a show of force piece to be presented on the news and in newspapers and online newspapers, etc. But that old man, whether he was an actor or not, is irrelevant. Whether he was placed there to be part of the scene is irrelevant. I don't care about that. I'm simply showing you the fact that his fall was legitimate. He was not a stuntman. He didn't do some marvellous piece of stuntman skills. And yeah, that's it really. So in summary, I agree with the notion that this scene was set up as a photo shoot to be presented in the news media as like a show of force for the police force. A completely staged, set up scene, because like you can see, there are no protesters. There's a handful there. There's one with a sign, the old man himself. Now, whether these people are actors there to take part in the scene, for the police to shuffle along and arrest or whatever it is that you want to do to make it look a little bit more dramatic. Got no issue with either of that either. In fact, it's completely separate to my argument. I agree with all of that. They probably were actors, the old man included. I don't care. And like I said, I don't care. That's not my argument. My argument is that it has been suggested that he was some kind of stuntman or some kind of actor, and that his fall was fake. That he fell in a particular way and landed in a particular way and had blood packs, etc., etc., which, if you've got two eyes in your head, you can see from what I've presented to you that that is not true. He was most certainly pushed. He most certainly stumbled backwards, lost his footing, fell backwards, and hit his head very, very hard on the concrete pavement below, which you can hear by the sound. Like, I'll show you again. Remember the one in the UK, the bloke filming was very, very close to the action, so that one will be a little bit louder. And the old man hitting his head was filmed from across the street. So while you can still hear the same sound, it'll be a little bit fainter because it was filmed and recorded from a further distance. Here, let me just run those side by side for you so you can compare sounds. I do not think it was a helmet that he was holding in his hand hitting the ground. It was clearly and most obviously his head. Also, it was not filmed in two separate takes, as I think I've clearly displayed here with my synced up images, synced up footage. It was one take. So yeah, I hope that clears a few things up. It was a staged scene. Whether or not this guy was paid to be part of it, like the guy holding the sign or whatever, I don't know. I don't care. It's superfluous to the argument. All I'm debunking is the notion that some have said that he was some kind of stuntman and that his fall was fake and he did some kind of magic stuntman stuff and all that kind of shit, which clearly it was not. So there. Hope that clears a few things up. If you think I've missed anything, let me know. If you think I'm wrong, that it was taken in two takes, you better have a darn good explanation. If you think he was a stuntman of some kind, you'd better have a darn good explanation, because, yeah, I think I've clearly demonstrated that he wasn't. Staged scene or not, that was a legitimate fall and a legitimate head bang. Anyway, let's hope he was alright, and let's hope the guy in the UK was alright as well, because both were quite sickening to see and quite sickening to hear. Now, just before I go, I want to call this bloke here who stomps on this bloke's head while he was clearly getting a hammering from somebody else. He's taken the opportunity to stomp on this bloke's head. I want to call him an arsehole. What an arsehole. And I want to call this guy dancing like a fag after that happened also an arsehole. What kind of an arsehole one comes up and stomps on a bloke's head like that? And what kind of an arsehole who was not involved would celebrate such an event? Two arseholes. Just wanted to get that in too, because that really, really bugged me out of this whole scene. Anyway, with that, I'll say goodbye, and I will catch you in the next video.